good morning, good afternoon, or wherever you happen to be. Welcome to the Alexa Developer Office Hours. It's me again, Amanda Lang, here to talk to you about all that's happening in the world of Alexa development. Thanks for joining us today. If you're out there in cyberspace, always appreciate seeing you. So today, we're going to be doing a talk about the radio skills kit, which is going to be pretty exciting, something I haven't talked about in the show before. But before I bring on my guest, I just want to do a quick plug for something else that's going on that's really exciting. We are doing a special edition Tech Talk on November 1st, which is going to be about Alexa LLM powered experiences. It's a preview of what's to come for those of you that are interested in working with LLMs out there. I know there's been a lot of buzz about it. There's been a lot going on. So if you want to check out that Tech Talk, it is Wednesday, November 1st at 10 a.m. PT. It's a quick half-hour talk, but we also have one of our Alexa champions, Steve Tinguris, who's coming on to the show to talk about his work with LLM integration so far with Alexa. We also have Emerson Sklar, who is one of our Alexa evangelists, has been on the show before, my co-worker and really smart guy. And Sid Vatula, who is going to be talking from the Amazon product side about the LLM experiences. So we're super excited to have that group. It's going to be a really neat talk, and I hope you can tune into that talk about LLM experiences. I think there's going to be a lot of cool conversation generated from what we're working on and what we'd like to showcase and preview for folks that are interested. So save the date for that. In the meantime, I'm going to bring on our guest today, Julian Smythe, who's going to be talking about the radio skills kit on Alexa. So welcome to the show, Julian. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Excited to do this and excited to talk about all things radio skills kit.
Excellent. Great. So first of all, before we get officially started, I'd love to just have you introduce yourself. You introduced yourself to me earlier when we did a little show run, but I'd love you to introduce yourself to the audience. Let us know who you are and what you do at Amazon.
Sure. So I'm a senior product manager on the Alexa audio team. I've actually been on the Alexa team for a few years now. Currently working on radio, the radio skills kit, in particular, our developer experience. For that, I've actually been with the Alexa team for a couple more years. Before I started working at radio, I worked on podcasts for Alexa, so may be able to answer a few questions if folks have on that, although it's not been my wheelhouse for a year or two. I had a couple other roles at Amazon prior, working on the consumer retail side. So, but Alexa right now, super exciting place to be. Radio is really fun and different and interesting. So I've really enjoyed getting to dive in to radio product, get to work with radio station owners, radio groups, get exposed to that aspect of
really cool.
delighting our customers on Alexa.
I think we have some folks, if not in our live audience, then definitely in our VOD audience that do podcasting. So I know there's going to be a lot of folks out there that have podcast info, podcast questions. Maybe if they don't see us, today, they don't get their questions answered today on the show, you can always join us on the Slack. If you know where the Slack is, come ask questions with me. We'll pass them along. But I definitely know that there's folks out there working on the audio side. So it's great to have somebody here talking about the Alexa powered audio and, how you can make it easier for developers and customers to engage with that. So let's start with the basics. What's the radio skills kit? Why do we have it? What's that experience like?
Yeah, so the radio skills kit essentially exists to empower radio station owners to make radio available on Alexa and to make it easy for customers to listen to radio on Alexa. So we, similar to how you listen to, Spotify or music, Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Music, whoever you listen to music, you can listen to radio. Obviously, radio is a little bit different. There are location aspects to radio. So we built the radio skills kit with that in mind as well. But essentially, we've made radio available on Alexa worldwide in dozens of countries. So basically, anywhere you can use Alexa, a couple notable exceptions. India and Japan, actually, we have not launched radio.
Right.
Those are really the two main holdouts. And we're working to bring radio to those countries as well. But essentially anywhere else that you can use Alexa, you can listen to radio. And radio is playable on Echo devices, both with and without a screen. You can use it on your mobile app, your mobile Alexa app. But essentially, you can ask for stations. Our customers can ask for a station by the station name, the call sign, if that exists in your country. That's big in the U.S., not as big in Europe, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or frequency. And so frequency actually, if you think about it, something like, let's say, play 98.6. So that's going to work. And the way we do that, of course, is that's going to vary by your location. What's available on 98.6 in your city may be different than what's available for me. So that's actually one of the differences between Radio Skills Kit and some of the ways that we play music on Alexa, is that we have to bring in location. Because we want to make sure that we're finding you what's most relevant to you in your location. But yeah, so that's essentially the customer experience, and all the great features that you might be used to using with music, you can use with radio as well. So device groups, if you want to say play radio station name everywhere, you can do that. You can set alarms, you can use routines, all those great features. For developers, we built the Radio Skills Kit essentially so that you get all of those features out of the box without having to do custom work that you would have had to do if you built a custom ASK skill, for example, for your station. So that's really the benefit for radio station owners, is that you can make your station available on Alexa very easily, and I'll get into some of the details of that, I'm sure, more, but without having to do a ton of custom work to take advantage of all those features and enable those for your customers.
So in the past, the workflow would be something like you'd have to have an open API that broadcasts your radio, for example, and then you'd have to create a custom skill to link up to that radio station.
Yeah, exactly. So when Alexa first got started, that is the main way that radio station owners made their stations available. They could either work through one of maybe one or two large sort of aggregator partners who we directly integrated with, but then the station owner wouldn't really have any control over how their station was presented, branded, the metadata, the experience. So a lot would go and create a custom skill, which requires you to invest development resources of your own, spend money on maintaining the custom skill, spend money on AWS services, for example, to power the backend. And we found that a lot of radio station owners really just, that's not their core skill set. Some of the larger groups, maybe have IT staff on hand who can do some of that work. But a lot of them ended up outsourcing it to, kind of consulting firms. We even found when we talked to, station owners, that a lot of them, they sort of signed a contract with somebody who created a skill, and then they kind of just set it and forget it. And they ran into a lot of pain points when, for example, they needed to do a rebrand or change the station name, change even what displays on our screen in terms of the station album art. It just wasn't in their control, or if it was, it required them to do tech work. And so we kind of identified, that's not what a lot of radio station companies or owners want to be spending time on. So, we thought, is there something that we could do to make this easier and a little bit more hands-off? And so that's really what we invested in over the last couple of years to get to the current state of our Radio Skills Kit, which is really more of a no-code solution where we kind of take on all of that work. Yeah,
I can imagine if you're a radio station owner and you say contract somebody to do your skill, and then later on you decide you need to change some stuff, you'd have to either get somebody to dig through somebody else's code, or you'd have to be like, oh, who has ownership of this particular skill? That do I still have access to this account? Like all those things that maybe you don't want to necessarily, because I know like back in the day when people were first making websites, it was the same kind of issue, right? Maybe you'd hire some kid right out of school, me, to do your website for your hair salon or something. And then, 6 months later, you'd be like, I need to change this and this and that. And I have to contract me a second time or find somebody else. So I imagine it's kind of a similar situation for some of those folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, and even as a customer trying to listen to radio, with these custom skills. I mean, custom skills are great. They give you a ton of flexibility. You can really build whatever you want, and Amazon is investing in amazing tooling. I know we're plugging the LLM talk that's going to happen next week, which is super exciting stuff going on there.
So cool.
But as a customer, it's a little bit more work, or it can be, to find how to listen to radio when it's a custom skill, because you have to actually enable the skill first. So you might have to say, like, let's say open KXYZ or WXYZ, whatever the station is, the first time to enable that skill. Then after that, if you set up the skill right, you can make it easy for the customer to just say play KXYZ, and they get access to it. But they have to have done the work to enable it first. And I apologize, my cat is very loud, and you might be hearing him off screen.
I love kitties. I love Kitty. It's fine if Kitty walks on the screen. It's totally fine.
But yeah, with the we'll see if we can get them on here. But yeah, with the radio skills kit, what we tried to do is make it easy for and friction free for customers as well. So you don't have to enable anything. It's automatically enabled. The first time you ask for it, is as simple as saying, play WKXYZ or play 98.6 or play News Seattle, whatever the station name, call sign, frequency is, and it should just work. And that's what we built.
Cool.
And so, I can get into how station owners can enable that as well.
Let me address some of the questions I see in chat, because I think we've got a few already. We'll talk a little bit about those, and then I want to ask you about if I'm a station owner. First question from a prisoner 4044. It's been a while since I've done audio streaming with Alexa. Is there a way to allow custom commands as part of a radio skill?
So no, there is not. Not as part of the radio skills kit. And so there is a trade-off, obviously, between the simplicity and the sort of hands-off nature of enabling radio through radio skills kit for both developers and customers. And one of the trade-offs that we do make is that you don't get some of the flexibility you would get with a custom skill where, for example, you could enable custom commands. So not sure exactly what you have in mind by custom commands. There are a lot of functionality that comes out of the box with radio skills kit. So for example, if you want to add a radio station to a routine, that comes out of the box. Or if you want to say, play in the kitchen on a speaker group that you've created, that comes out of the box. But custom commands is something that, we don't support at this time with radio skills kit.
Okay. Well, so here's the follow-up question, and I'll go back to the previous question. For example, I'd like my listeners to be able to provide feedback to me. I can kind of see that, where we're going with that.
Yeah, that's definitely a feature that we are interested in. It's something that we've actually piloted, or are piloting now, I should say, with one of our partners. iHeartRadio has sort of co-invested in developing this feature with us. They're calling it TalkBack. And essentially, you can send a TalkBack to station name or call sign, whatever it is. It's basically a voice comment that you can send to that station. This feature is, like I said, it's sort of a preview feature that we've developed, co-developed really with iHeartRadio. It's something that we would like to make more broadly available to other radio partners. But I can't comment at this time as to when that will be on our roadmap.
Yeah, I've seen that preview. I think it would be really cool when you get more of those out, because I know people really want to get that recorded. It records the feedback from the user, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it basically allows the user to record their voice and send it to a station, and the station can then, with the customer's consent, obviously they can choose to play some of those on air. They can maybe work that into a contest of some kind. And so those are definitely the types of features that we are investigating and interested in lighting up more broadly, but don't have that generally available.
He mentioned polls as well. So yeah, I think it sounds like there's not the ability to add custom skills, custom commands, but there is the ability, the radio skills kit will become more robust and add additional commands in the future to continue that interaction between the radio station and the user.
Yeah, absolutely. At this time, it is essentially the core feature set is really about just making stations available easily with minimal effort from the station owner, and making playback available easily to the customer in an intuitive way. But yes, we'd absolutely like to invest in additional features down the road that foster interactivity, and so certainly that's something that we're we're trying to plan for.
Okay. Returning to a previous question, do we get metrics about listeners? Is there an API to get those metrics back about who's listening to your station?
Yeah, absolutely. So not an API, but we do have a dashboard available. So if you basically listing a station on Alexa requires an Amazon developer account, makes sense, right? But and yes, and through your Amazon developer account, there is a dashboard where you can see metrics such as number of listeners, number of streams, how many streams last more than 30 seconds. That's what we look at as one of the success metrics, is basically did we get you the right thing, is if you listen for more than a certain amount of time. So yeah, all those metrics and KPIs are available through the dashboard on developer.amazon.com.
Cool. And since those are exposed, if people want to take a look at a little bit more detail about what their users are doing, then that gives them an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. And we do find a lot of station groups as well, and we certainly don't discourage this. They will use a custom streaming URL when they set up their stations through Alexa that has like a ref tag or some sort of identifier, so that they can tell where the traffic is coming from and hook that up to whatever kind of dashboards or metrics that they use to measure success, to measure customer behaviors, and on their back end.
Yeah, that was my follow-up. It sounds like there's a support for people using custom dashboards to get more analytics if they want them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we find that's very common. We'll sort of look sometimes at like some of the streaming URLs that get passed to us, and it'll have, Alexa in the somewhere in the name or whatever developers choose to use. But yes, they're absolutely free to kind of set up their own custom reporting and measure audience and all of that stuff.
Question from Gary on YouTube. Would Alexa users need to change their location setting to hear a radio station in a different city? Or I guess a follow-up, could we do that? Listen to radio stations in different cities.
You could do that. Yeah, I think in the Alexa app, you can change all sorts of settings. You shouldn't need to do that. So no, there's no restriction on you listening. Well, I shouldn't say no restriction. There's generally within the same country, there's no restriction on you listening to radio in a different city. How you ask for the station might depend on what you get. So for example, if you ask for it by frequency, we're just going to look at the immediate vicinity and probably going to choose the closest station that matches the frequency to you. If there's a specific station that you have in mind, you can ask for it by name, and we will do our best to match that to you regardless of where you are. Now, that's actually something that we see as kind of a frequent problem or issue of confusion, because sometimes stations can have very common names. So I've actually looked at our database, and we have something like 40 stations in the US called Hits 106, which is kind of crazy to think about. But so if you ask for Hits 106, we're going to try to find the best match for you based on your location. And if you're trying to get to one that's in a city, across the country, we're probably not going to get it to you just by name. But what you can do in that case would be ask by call sign. At least in the US, stations all have unique call sign, call letter identifiers. And so if you know the call letters for that station, even if it is 600 miles away and has a very common name, if you just say play, WBST, whatever it is, we're going to be able to match that for you.
Okay. Yeah. So it seems like there's no restriction on listening to other stations as long as you know how to find them.
As long as you know how to find them. The only restriction might be that some stations they are geo-restricted at the country level. And so we do allow station owners to restrict that. That often has to do with rights, whether it's music licensing rights, sports rights, et cetera. So sometimes, and you can certainly try, sometimes stations from, across the world may be available to you, but we do allow station owners to restrict based on country.
I was just thinking about music, but sports, that's a probably pretty common thing people want to listen to, right? You want to listen to sports from your hometown across the country.
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely a use case that we see. That might be a little bit hit or miss. I think not on our end. Again, we don't have tools right now, and that's something that we're still sort of in the product discovery phase of should we build them to restrict more granularly based on geography. Again, with sports largely in mind. But we have found that some stations do only have rights to stream sports broadcasts, for example, in a certain city. And so in some cases, in order to list their stations on Alexa, we have found that station owners will actually block a playback of the content during game times, so that they're not in breach of contracts. But again, that's something that at the moment it's really up to the station owner to manage.
Right. Yeah. So let's get back to the station owner. Say I'm a station owner. I want to make my radio station available on Alexa. How do I get started with the RSK?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to you can search for the Alexa Radio Skills Kit online, and you'll find a result. There's a landing page that you'll find on the internet that has a bunch of information about how to list. But essentially,
I'll link that in the chit chat too.
Yeah, I just put it in our channel chat. So if you want to drop that in, that'd be great. But yeah, so what we've done. So initially, maybe just let me backtrack a little bit. So first, there were custom skills, which the developer is completely in charge of how to develop, the entire customer experience, pretty maintenance, somewhat intensive resource-wise. In 2019, we developed the first iteration of the Radio Skills Kit. That still required developers to actually create their own skill. It was just that they were using the Radio Skills Kit interface that we built, which meant that they would get all of the functions like, search by location, play everywhere, play by speaker group, support for routines, alarms, all those fun features that I was talking about. But nonetheless, the developer still had to spend months creating a skill, invest in ongoing maintenance. So over the last couple of years, we invested in really trying to abstract that all away and come up with what we call the no-code Radio Skills Kit, and that's what we primarily talk about today. So essentially, if you go to developer.amazon.com and the link that we provided there, you can learn more about that. But we built a Radio Skills Kit console. Where you can make your skill available without doing any development work. Basically, you just need to provide us with a bunch of metadata. So we want, the station name, obviously, the station artwork that we'll display on our screen devices, and a few other things. But most importantly, is obviously going to be the streaming URL. And so simply, creating a developer account, logging into that site, listing that information. You can either do it, one station at a time, or you can, upload an Excel file. We provide a template where you can provide that information for a bunch of stations all at once. Just upload that to us, and within about 72 hours, that's sort of it can be faster, but that's about the average time. We do a bunch of things on the back end. We ingest the information that you sent us. We run some checks to make sure that there's no, profanity in the name or the station art. We want to protect our customers, obviously. Essentially, we take that time to validate and then publish the station to Alexa. And the status is also will be displayed to you on that portal. So you'll see, first you make the submission, then it'll go into in progress, and then you'll see when it gets published as well. So really trying to make it as simple as possible, because again, we know that, skill development, app development, et cetera, is not necessarily in the core wheelhouse of a lot of radio station owners. So we just want to make it easy for them to list the stations on Alexa, and easy for customers to get to those stations. Yep. So that's the current process.
Cool. Sounds like it's not too hard. Oh, by the way, I pasted that link in the chat, but the first time there was a typo in it, so I had to paste it again. Sorry about that, folks. If you want to click on StreamYard is doing a thing where it opens in a new tab to every link I paste. I don't know. It's second time it was a charm. Click on that link. It'll take you to the Radio Skills Kit landing page. If you can't find it, search Radio Skills Kit and your search engine of choice. It will pop right up. It's pretty easy to find. Next question from the chat. As a developer, could someone use the Radio Skills Kit to integrate with software-defined radio stations? I'm not sure what that means.
I'm also not sure what that means.
Clarify for us what you mean by a software-defined radio station. Like maybe just create a radio station that's not on the radio?
Yeah, so I mean, to maybe just assume what I think the question might be about. we did build the radio skills kit primarily with terrestrial radio in mind, and that's why I
Mhm.
mentioned support for location, for frequency, etc.
Mhm.
But there's no requirement that you be a terrestrial radio station listing on Alexa.
Okay.
You
Okay.
absolutely can list a streaming only, web only station.
Okay. That's
Um,
probably that's probably the question, right?
yeah, and so there are a couple differences, obviously, to how you would list. We do have some instructions on the portal itself about how to list your station. One of the things we mentioned, for example, if you're web only, you're not going to have a call sign, so just repeat
Mhm.
the station name in the call sign field. You're not
Got it.
going to have a frequency, right? So just put 0 as the frequency. But yeah, we're absolutely open for streaming only, web only stations. Software defined radio, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but what we require really is just a streaming URL.
Oh, right. Mhm.
And so as long as the URL works, customers are going to be able to play back whatever you're sending through that stream. And then what you do on your back end, we don't know, it just
Right.
has to be a URL that streams audio content, essentially.
I know back in my MMORPG, well, I still play Final Fantasy 14, but when I was doing a lot of City of Heroes, other MMOs, people would have like a radio station for players of the game that they would broadcast on a URL somewhere, and then you could log into that radio station, which wasn't really on the radio, but it was like a broadcasting URL, and then everybody would be listening to the same music, all over the world as you played. So I think that kind of thing is another cool use of RSK, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the only thing is you can't actually, what we
Mhm.
can't, what won't work is a stream that requires you to log in
Right.
because there's no way to do that. So, but
Right.
as long as the stream doesn't require a login or a click or
Mhm.
anything, that is actually one of the things that we sometimes see people run into. We're
Mhm.
actually
Okay.
working on some additional validations to inform. So that's another thing we do is if we detect sort of errors in your listing, we
Mhm.
will flag those for you before publication. And one thing that we're working on is flagging non-functioning URLs, something we realize is a gap that we
Mhm.
don't currently do.
Mhm.
So yeah, we do sometimes see developers submit a URL that actually it works for them on their browser because they click on it. There's something they click on and then it plays. Well, with Alexa, you can't click on something. So
Right.
that's something that we do see as a common error.
And he says, yes, that's right. The audio stream coming from a computer rather than being broadcast. Yep, supported as long as somebody can reach your URL without any additional hoops to log in. Is what it sounds like.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Cool, cool. So the big reason I have you on here today is that the DAG team has told me that there's common issues that people run into when they're trying to onboard with Radio Sales Kit. And it would be good to talk about what those common issues were and how we can help tech support for people who are using RSK. So, what are some of the issues that station owners encounter when they're using Radio Sales Kit? And what are the best practices for how to make the most of Radio Sales Kit and avoid those pitfalls?
Yeah, definitely. We've definitely seen more issues than I think we planned for, candidly. The biggest one really is just thinking about the voice interface and how customers are actually going to get to your station. So I mentioned, there are some really common names out there. Hits 106. Apparently, like there are dozens of them across the U.S. Right. So something that we sometimes see is station owners will list a station or list multiple stations that they may not necessarily be close to. Because think about it, if you have 12 radio stations in different markets, you may have one person listing them in one location and then trying to test them from that location. And they may not actually be able to get to them because the names are really common and they're getting something else that's closer to them or really popular. So
Okay.
just think about trying to give your customers something that's sort of unique and will, in terms of the name that they can invoke, that will get them to that specific station. So maybe instead of hits 106, it's K hits 106 or something like that. Just something that gives customers a unique thing to ask for. Another thing that I think we run into frequently is that it may seem like, okay, I just list my station name and I say, place station name and customers are going to get to it. But actually, Alexa's, sorry, my cat is being very, very vocal. Let's see if we can get
It's
him.
okay. Hey, buddy. Oh, wow. Beautiful.
Brisinger.
It's a big cat. Hello.
um, so, and sorry for that. But yeah, something
That's
that
all.
we frequently see is that Alexa's not actually hearing the same thing that that is matching up with your station name. So we do actually have a field called alternate names, and we
okay.
encourage station owners to make use of that liberally
Mhm.
to sort of broaden the coverage of things that Alexa might hear that will match up with your station name. And I say that also because the primary station name field that we use, that's what we use for displaying, for example, on-screen devices. So if you think of an Echo Show or even the Alexa companion app, when you're playing the station, that's what we show on the screen, right? So you may not want to have some weird spelling or weird phonetic spelling of your station displayed there, but you actually can put that in the alternate names field because we don't display that anywhere. So that's why we have that. So one really popular sort of group of stations that folks may be familiar with if they're in the radio industry is K-Love. K-Love is branded as K-Love, all caps. But actually, when you say play K-Love, Alexa hears K period love as a separate word.
Got it.
So if you don't sort of think about how Alexa might hear things, and this is especially true, I think, in radio, where there's all sorts of ways that stations can be branded, then you're going to run into problems where you're not going to be able to get to that station. So what I'd encourage folks to do actually is to try saying their station name. Try say play K-Love, and you can actually look at the Alexa app. So say it to your Alexa device, and you can actually look at the Alexa app, and you can see your voice history, and you can see what Alexa heard. And so then, if Alexa hears it a little bit weird, or it's, spelled a little bit differently, you can then take that sort of phoneticization of what Alexa heard and put that as an alternate name in your station setup. And that'll help broaden sort of the voice coverage of ensuring that Alexa hears and understands your station correctly.
So you might add something like spell it out Kaylove, so it's like K-Love one word or something like that, so Alexa understands what they were saying to it, and so they pick up the radio station.
Yeah, absolutely. So if your station is like, W Jams or something, just try saying it to Alexa and see how Alexa hears it, and make sure that you put that put the way that she hears it in your alternate names coverage. And then if your station is a really generic name, you might have to think about how you might brand it a little bit differently for Alexa. So for example, if you have a streaming web station called Pop Hits, that's going to be really generic. We're going to really struggle to find your station for that because, think about it. You as a customer, if you're listening to music on Alexa, you probably have a streaming service. You maybe have, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, like all sorts of services, right? And they all have, all sorts of playlists and their own streaming stations. So something like, alternative hits or pop hits, we're probably going to bias that towards streaming music, to be honest. And so thinking about ways to make your station name a little bit more specific and differentiated, where we're going to know when you say, like, when you ask to play that's what you want, that's going to be really helpful at ensuring that your customers get your playback.
Yeah, that's different, because if you think about it from the perspective of a local market, if you're Hits 106, you're the Hits 106 for Cleveland, Ohio, or the Hits 106 for Baltimore, or whatever it is. So people know what they're getting into when they turn the radio on. It's going to be the one that's close. But now when we have this worldwide radio sales kit, there's 10 different stations called that. How does it know which one to pick? And you're saying it will typically default to the one closest to you geographically. But in the case of internet-only stations, like we were talking about earlier, it doesn't really know how to choose if your name is simple and generic like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because we may not even know that we may not even be confident that you're asking for radio, as opposed to, I apologize for the background noise again.
Is that the cat again?
It is the cat. He has a treadmill.
Oh my God.
So he's running on it right now. And it's very loud. So I probably should have done this from the office, but
no, it's I think we're kind of entertained by it. So it's additional content.
But yeah, so with something like a Hits 106, we're, that's a pretty common name at this point. We figured out that's radio on the back end, and we're going to look for the one that's nearest to you. So if I'm in Seattle, I'm trying to set up a Hits 106 in Cleveland, and I ask to play Hits 106, I'm not going to get the one in Cleveland. I'm going to get one that's closer to me. But with something like alternative hits, or something that like we're not even sure that that's radio that you're asking for, you're probably going to get streaming music instead.
Yeah, you're going to get a Spotify playlist as well. Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to ask you what the cat's name is.
His name is Brizinger, which is it's a character from a fantasy novel. I actually couldn't even tell you which one. It's my partner's cat originally.
Oh, okay.
but yeah,
that's cute. And now back from the chat, what streaming formats are supported? Which I take it to mean like what kind of streaming formats from internet?
So all sorts of streaming formats. Really, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't list all of them. But all of your major streaming formats, HLS I know is one of them. But essentially, what you can do is if you have a VLC player, it's a free download. But basically, if you can play your stream in something like a VLC player, you're going to be able to play it through Alexa. And so that's actually what we have in some of our documentation. But if you go to the Radio Skills Kit site, we have on the right, it's called a quick start guide, but there's a bunch of information about metadata, a bunch of FAQs. We list all of the different streaming formats there that you can use. So you can go there as well to see what's supported. Really, most of them are. The one requirement that we really have is that you have to have an HTTPS URL. We are very concerned with security. And so HTTP, we've seen occasionally developers try to put those in. Those are not supported, and that's really a security restriction. We want encryption.
So next question, do they stream directly to the user's Alexa, or do they pass through a proxy with the Radio Skills Kit, i.e. will I see every user connecting? I think it does pass through because that's how we get the analytics, right? But maybe you can clarify.
And actually, let me put in the chat, here's the stream formats that we use.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, what we ask you to do when you set up your station is to provide us with a streaming URL. And so when a user invokes that station, we are going to call that URL. Basically, it is going to be called directly from your Echo device or your Alexa.
So it does directly call the stream.
Yeah. But, in the cloud, of course, we're sending that directive to the device so we know that you're trying to invoke that stream. And so that's how we build the analytics. But the stream itself is actually connected from the device.
Oh, really cool. Really cool. So pretty simple. Just plug it right in, and then the device itself gathers a little bit of information.
Yep. Yeah.
Are there any other pitfalls that radio station owners should be aware of that may be tripping them up besides the invocation name and trying to be unique in branding?
That's really the biggest one. I think we do see some ongoing issues that we are working on fixing on our side. So I mentioned that we have validation against explicit language, images, etc. That's all done using machine learning models, and so they sometimes have false positives. And so we do see cases where stations get submitted and they get incorrectly flagged for having an explicit name, and we reject them. And so we then, we don't know about it until essentially developers contact us. That's where DAG gets involved. But the developers through the Radio Skills Kit console can submit a contact us case, and they can say, hey, my station is called, 105 FM, whatever. And for some reason it got flagged as having an explicit name. What's going on? We then have to look at that at the back end and say, okay, these models were actually off. We can manually publish this for you. And then we actually don't own the models. My team doesn't own the models that do this validation. It's another team within Alexa, but we'll flag it to them and say, hey, you guys need to refine this. So that's something that we see a little bit more commonly than I would like. So some of those contacts do come through the developer advocacy group, those contact us cases. Another one that we see that, again, it's really an issue on our side that we need to fix and do better at, is that we'll see, a station owner create their station, it happens to already be listed on another service. So
Mhm.
in the US, for example, both TuneIn and iHeartRadio, and I think Odyssey all sort of aggregate stations that they don't own. iHeartRadio and Odyssey obviously own a ton of stations themselves, but they list some other stations that aren't owned by them. And so those may already be present on Alexa. And obviously, when developers make a station available themselves through the Radio Skills Kit, they expect that the traffic is going to go to the station they've set up. Sometimes it continues to go to one of those other services. We try not to do that. We try to basically link those stations so that we know that they're the same one, and we go to the one that the station owner has submitted. But it doesn't always work, and so sometimes we have to investigate on our back end for issues like that. So yeah, those are some of the drivers that we see of developers contact us. That's why we make available a contact us link
Right.
through the site, so that you can sort of ask us to investigate and chase down instances where that's happening as well.
So if I have a radio station, have a unique name that's easy to find and brand, but don't have any swear words in it or anything edgy that may accidentally get flagged with content. And if it does accidentally get flagged with content, that's what Contact Us is about.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Makes sense. So once I've got my radio skills kit set up, I put it together, I've got it sort of running on Alexa. What are the ways that as a developer, as a station owner, I can build an audience there? Could I build an audience outside of my usual hearing area? How would I tell people about my station on Alexa?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things we've really seen station owners have success with is not to be too selfish or self-promoting, but promoting listening to Alexa on air. So telling listeners through other channels that they can find their station on Alexa. Saying you can also find us on your smart speaker. Just ask Alexa to play K105 or whatever it is, whatever you've tested and you found that's working for customers to get playback from your station. Radio listening, a lot of it happens in the car, and more of it used to happen in the home than does now, right? People used to have radios in the home, and that's just much less common. So we really think of the Echo devices, the Alexa-enabled devices, as being kind of a replacement for that, and
Right.
a way for customers to access radio in the home. But they have to know to do it. They have to think to do it. And so if you're reaching them, for example, in the car, telling them, reminding them that they can also listen from the home on the Echo device, I think is really helpful. But radio is also really habitual. So I mentioned some of the features that you get on Radio Skills Kit already, but we actually really find that a lot of these drive really sticky behavior with customers. So alarms, for example,
Right.
we've seen station owners. There's actually a large station owner in the UK right now that's doing a big campaign, a marketing campaign. Around like "Wake Me Up to Heart" is their station in the UK. So "Wake Me Up to" your station name. That's supported out of the box, and that can be a way for customers to build habit of listening at a set time each day. Routines is another one. It's maybe a little bit harder to promote because there isn't necessarily like one utterance that you can promote, and customers will have to go in and sort of set your station as part of the routine. But routines is something that you can tell Alexa, like, "Alexa, good morning," and you can have Alexa take a number of actions, like turn on the lights, or turn on the connected coffee maker if you have one, and then play the radio. There is a bunch of sort of automated routines actually where you can set it so that if the Alexa device hears, running water for 3 minutes in the morning between, 7 a.m. and 7:10, then Alexa do X, Y, and Z. And one of those can be, play your radio station. So those are things that we see can be really valuable for station owners to sort of educate customers about and promote in the context of their station, because it can build these really sticky habits of just day after day after day listening that customers don't really have to think about. And there you go. Then you have a huge built-in audience. So
It sounds like you can use it as like the classic clock radio function, used to set a particular station to wake you up in the morning. It's the same thing with the Alexa radio. So you can actually say, like, at this time, play this radio station, and it'll wake you up with that radio station.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's that, and that's the alarm function, and then the
Mhm.
routine is like the and more, right? So if you
Right.
do have a smart home with like a ton of connected devices,
Mhm.
you can set it up through routines to wake you up at a certain time, and turn on the lights or raise the blinds or like all these other things that you can use Alexa for. You can automate all of that. Just makes it easier for you, makes it easier. Well, if you're the customer, and then as a station owner, if you build that in as kind of a habit for customers, it just builds in that listening and retains that audience for you kind of automatically.
So raise the blinds, start the coffee, and play my morning news all in one command.
Yeah, exactly.
And it sounds like you're seeing some pretty good success with that, with the stations that have tried it, onboarded, going on the air and saying, hey, by the way, you can use Alexa to.
Yeah, we've definitely seen large increases in voice traffic of utterances like that are getting promoted. So I can't really get into specifics of
Mhm.
specific campaigns, but when we've seen station groups really go and in a coordinated manner promote things like um, wake me up to X, or the feature that we're piloting, the talkback feature, the voice comment feature that we're piloting, promoting that on air. We really see changes in customer behavior on Alexa
Mhm.
as a result of those campaigns. So absolutely, talking about these features on air, promoting them, we see driving results for the stations that do it.
Next question from chat. Can we send other dynamic metadata with the stream that we displayed on a screen? It sounds like yes, things like album covers and stuff like that. But could you go into what metadata could be sent?
Yeah, so album covers, no.
No.
We do ask as part of the station setup. One of the required fields is station artwork.
Oh, okay.
But the
So
station
station art.
artwork, yeah, the station artwork at this time is static. We are working on, and we actually have launched with a few larger partners the ability to send streaming metadata associated with the song that's playing. So in addition to the station name, you can display the song name, the artist name. We're working to roll that out more broadly to all of our RSK partners. By I think early next year is the tentative plan.
Mhm.
So that absolutely is in the works. We are looking at both the ICY and ID3 streaming formats for station owners who are using
Mhm.
either of those.
Mhm.
But that is not launched generally yet. That will be
Okay.
fun.
So it sounds like those are sort of features that are in the works that at some point we might have more metadata being sent, but for right now it's a limited preview of that metadata.
Yeah, and through your stream, you can absolutely send the metadata now.
Mhm.
You can get ready for when we do have the feature available, but we're not actually in a position yet to use and display that.
Yeah, it sounds like there's still a lot that could be added, but on the other hand, really quick out of the box solution for people who just want to get up and running. And when you say no code, it's just as simple as filling out a form, plugging it in, testing it out, seeing letting it go.
That's really all there is to do. There's no code required, no maintenance required. We take care of all of that. We do all the maintenance. We pay, for hosting the skills themselves, as it were. So yeah, it's really as simple as just adding your metadata, hitting submit to wait for the station to publish. Then yes, as you said, testing it. We absolutely encourage that. Make sure that you test. You try testing your play station name, play the alternate names that you've submitted. See what works, tweak as needed. Like I said, please do make use of the fact that you can see in the Alexa app how Alexa actually hears your utterances. So make sure that you you're including alternate names at the very least that
Mm-hmm.
match how Alexa hears your station name. But that's really all there is. And then you can access the station analytics. There's also a link directly from the Radio Skills Kit console to the analytics portal. So once you do list the station, it takes a couple days for analytics to start flowing through. I think it's about 2 days. But yeah, then you can go and you can just see how many customers are listening, how long they're listening, all that good stuff.
I'm actually going to do something I don't always do, which is go ahead and share my screen real quick just to show how quick this is because I opened it up in a new tab just to give it a try. And there's like two different places you can click, but the one is just, it drops you right in right into the process. So if you click on Get Started, so I'm just actually going to go ahead and share that real quick, just
Yeah,
because
please.
I think it's yeah, I know. Which screen am I sharing? I'm going to share this one that says Amazon Alexa radio skills. So you'll be able to see that right there. There's, if you scroll down, there's the tech docs, but this is more for the traditional building a skill. It goes into a little more detail. The button to click is this one right here. That says Get Started, because that's going to drop you right into Add a Station. And it's just
Yep.
really, really straightforward. And you can put those alternate names right in there, and you get your ID, you get your location, your city. You kind of want to put it where your location is, it looks like. And then this is where you add that station art to broadcast show on the show devices, right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, we really try to make it very simple. Yeah, your NIDA will save because you haven't entered some of the required fields there. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if you saw on the right of that screen, there's a guide that really lays out as you first land on that page. Some of the
It shows the getting
um,
started right here.
yeah, it just gives you a little bit more info about what Radio Skills Kit is. There's a bunch of frequently asked questions there as you enter that like add a station workflow. We show you a little bit more info on that side about the catalog info that we're asking for, what that is, in case you do have any questions. Something like alternate names. Why do we want them? What are they? Well,
Mm-hmm.
we have information there about that. The information about what streaming formats are supported is there as well. Again, HTTPS, not HTTP, but then beyond that, we support a whole lot. And then there are going to be links there as well to information about how to contact us, how to submit a
Yep.
case. So yeah, really, hopefully as self-explanatory as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
in case it's not, then there's a link to.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like they make it pretty simple to contact them if there's a problem, but hopefully this conversation here today has answered some of those FAQs that people have about why can't people find my station, or why did my station get flagged, or whatever. Maybe this will give them a little bit, point them toward this video and say, hey, maybe you need to just add more alternative names to your station. Be sure to spell it out phonetically. You know, come out with a way to make your station stand out, because it's a big world out there, and once you're broadcasting to people even globally with your local radio station, you could probably bring in a lot of traffic if you've got a cool show to share and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And some people, especially with some of the terrestrial radio stations, like customers may already know about your station and they just need to know that they can access it on Alexa.
Mm-hmm.
But other times, like you said, I mean, you may be launching a web-only station and building an audience organically, and we're really building for both use cases in mind.
Really, really cool. And Prisoner says, thank you for all the answers. I appreciate all the questions. I think we have a great show when there's lots of questions to ask, and I'm glad that y'all had so many questions for us today. And Julian, thank you for coming on the show and talking to me about it. I know there's a lot of people out there who want to get started with RSK, not necessarily developers, station owners, hobbyists, people who do streaming, live streaming. And it's great that we have this very easy solution. People just run it through, plug it through, and they're off to the races, huh?
That's the goal. Absolutely. Yep.
Any other questions from chat or parting thoughts that you'd like to share? Because we're really getting close to our time today. I felt like this conversation just flew. This was really fun.
Yeah, well, if no other questions, I really appreciated getting to talk to you all, answer some of these questions, and talk a little bit more about Radio Skills Kit. So, hope this was helpful for folks. We really did build this product just to make it as easy as possible for station owners, or people who want to build a web station, for it to be as easy for them as possible to make their content available to customers on Alexa, and as easy as possible for customers to find the content, especially once they know about it, hopefully with your help, as people who maybe have an audience already, telling customers where to find it on Alexa. But yeah, we just want to make it as easy for everyone. And so hope this was helpful, clarifying some of the rough edges and the best practices, or the issues that people run into.
Thank you so much. If you have further questions, don't forget you could always join our Slack. Most of you are on there. If you're not on there, join our Slack, chat with me, chat with the folks here at Alexa. Happy to answer your questions. If you have questions about other types of development, And we're going to be back next week at the same time, same channel. We're going to be talking about IDE development. So we went from a no-code solution to what are the hardcore coders doing in the span of 2 weeks. So we got a lot of different stuff in the pipeline here. But thank you so much, Julian, for joining us today on the show. And good luck to anybody out there who's starting their radio station.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.